missing someone. Love with all your heart. Missing someone. Love with heart.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this week I have a new client. You can see she has quite a bit of like banding in her hair. So a little bit about her color history is, by the way, this is my first time doing her hair. The previous color that was done, it was not done by me. So previously she had someone put in like lowlights in her hair and then also highlights. And then that dark band in the top of her root, I'm not really sure what that was intended for. But I would say she has a good mix of highlights and lowlights going on in her hair. And essentially she just wants something that's going to blend with her natural. You can see her natural root is about, I would say, like maybe a little over an inch or so. So she wants something that's going to blend out better, but also just kind of get rid of the old lowlights that she has in her hair as well too. And she said she was going to a hairdresser for a while, and they were trying their best to blend out and just have something that would grow out really soft and stuff. But she went to a couple different people, so I believe that's why there are some patches of different colors in her hair. And you'll see too as I go and work through her hair that some things are more patchy as we go through it. Okay, so let's get into this gray blending transformation. So our goal is essentially to blend out her gray, but also help blend out the color that she has previously on her mids and ends. So we have old highlights that we're working with, we have some permanent color I assume that we're working with, and we also have her virgin hair. So those are all things that I need to consider when doing or letting her process, things that I need to look out for. And those are things that I think of and what I'm expecting her to lift to. So you can see she has dark patches, she has virgin hair, and then she has some highlights on the end. So since the permanent color that's on her hair really isn't super dark, I would say might be like a level 6, maybe level 7 permanent color. Because it's not super dark in my opinion compared to her natural, I'm just going in with one formula from root to end as I'm painting in the foil. And this is just because I feel like it's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be a drastic difference of lift from root to ends, even though we are working with different color histories and different canvas. It's a very uneven canvas, but what I'm going to be looking out for when she's processing is whichever part of the hair that's in the foil reaches like a level 10, then the whole thing is done. I'm going to immediately rinse that out, and she's just kind of left with whatever she's lifted to. And if a client had permanent color, like let's say like a level 4 or level 3 instead of what she has right now, and it was patchy the way that it is now, I would for sure use something different as far as developer. But because the levels are pretty similar, it's not super drastic. That's why I'm just going in with one formula. So for my products, I am using the Blonde Me Schwarzkopf Lightener. And my first bowl, I will always mix up a diluted version of 20 volume. So to dilute it, I just add some 6 volume into my bowl. And then the rest of the head, I'm just going to be using 20 volume. So whenever I do gray blending myself, I personally am not a huge fan of adding lowlights at all into the hair. I find that whenever I've added lowlights, it's very tricky for me to predict when or how the low light is going to fade. And then it's also very time consuming and tricky for me to touch up a low light that has a head of also highlights. So to avoid that, I just work with the canvas with whatever the client has. So whatever dark she has, I'm going to use that as my low light. I'm not going to add in any more low light. And I do it this way because I don't want to go back in and retouch any dark, or I feel like it just kind of gets a little messy, fades too fast, and it just doesn't last in my opinion. So I don't see the purpose of doing it and putting in so much effort into doing a low light if it's not gonna last, or if it grows out and looks as harsh as her old low lights were. Because you can see here she does have old low lights in her hair, but yet it gave her such a strong dark line of demarcation that we are blending and softening out right now. So I just particularly don't love doing low lights. If any of you guys have techniques or ways or tricks even, let me know down below if you guys like to low light in your gray blending. I just personally don't. I always try to work with what they have and just enhance whatever we're working with any highlights. So right now I'm just doing my standard slicing pattern up the head. You can see I'm doing my center section and I'm working all the way up towards the top mohawk and then taking that all the way to the hairline. So some things that I do want to consider as I am working on her hair is I am trying to actively pick out the pieces that have like darker patches of dark. Whatever old low light she had. So I am purposely trying to pick out those pieces so that we can break up those patches even more, because like you saw in her before, some of it were pretty harsh lines and like just chunks of dark. So in this session I told her it's not going to be perfect after today, but it will look way more blended than what you came in with. So I would say the thing that I'm doing a little bit differently on her compared to a lot of my other gray blending videos that you guys may have seen is that as I'm on the top here, you can see, like I said, she already has some previous highlights. So I don't want to over highlight her. So I am, again, actively picking out the dark, but I'm weaving those areas. So instead of going in and like fully slicing them out, I'm trying to weave them just to break it up even more. And I'd rather do this than do a full slice because I don't want her to feel too blonde. I feel like doing a weave, it's going to leave a little bit more dimension, give a very soft grow out. And because she already has a ton of highlights on the mids and ends, I also just felt like if I were to do slices on this top part, it would give her the appearance that she was like a solid blonde rather than more of a blended look, if that makes sense. And then the other thing that I wanted to note too, I don't know if you guys can tell, the top portion of her head, as I'm going through and like sectioning it, has way more highlights than it did on the underneath portion of her head. If you guys remember, when I first started foiling her head, she had a lot more dark, and as I'm going through and getting closer to the top, she has a lot more highlights. So I don't want to, again, over highlight those areas. I want something that will grow out very soft and more blended, because ideally she has really pretty gray pattern. It's not like she has a lot of dark. She has more white than dark. So I want some of her natural to be there to act as those natural lowlights. So that's again why I chose to weave and really pick out these pieces on the very top section opposed to my normal slicing, just because of the way that her gray is. Another thing is, you can see here as I'm doing her money piece, she does have a lot of white around her hairline. So again, I'm just going to be slicing, kind of following her natural gray pattern. So if a client has more of a white face frame naturally, like the hairs around their face are primarily patches of white, then I'm gonna go and do slices. If a client has hairs around the hairline that are more primarily like salt and pepper, there's like a mix of dark and light, then I'll go in and weave and then also ask them if they want the front lighter or not. But because her front hairline is mostly white, like there's barely any salt and pepper, it's mostly just like salt in my opinion, then I didn't even ask her. I just went in and did mostly slices. And then I'm pretty much just going to continue my weaving that I did in the back up until I pretty much connect it to the back part of the mohawk. So again, I did explain to my client that after today, the color is not going to be completely perfect, but it is going to be a lot more blended than when she came in. Like that line of demarcation at her root is definitely going to be a lot softer as we blend this out. And I totally could have added lowlights in here, but again, the reason why I didn't is because I'm just personally not a fan, because it fades fast, and I'm more of a person that, like, if it's not gonna last, then I feel like there's no point in putting in the effort to make something that will only last like a month or so, and then it fades out, and then we kind of have another issue to where it doesn't look the way that it should. See, I'm putting in, at least these highlights that I'm putting in will last, and she can maintain them with like a nice purple shampoo to keep them nice and bright until she sees me again. But the low light, there's nothing that I can really give her to help kind of maintain it in between appointments. She would just have to let it fade out, and then I would have to retouch them later. So that is a main reason why I opted to just do highlights to blend this out and just leave the other patches there for me to pick out next time. And so as she comes in next time, it is going to be a gradual process. I'm going to be doing the same thing, pretty much weaving the top part, slicing the underneath where it's mostly dark, up until the point where we don't see these little awkward patches of lowlights anymore, and eventually everything will look really blended and nice. And once we get to her ultimate goal, that's when like she's really happy with it, she doesn't see any more patches, that's when this type of client can convert into like seeing me once or twice a year. It's when those clients get to their goal is when I'm like, okay, you can go however long you want. This is going to fade out really pretty. You really don't need a touch up. And I'll even tell my clients, like, you really don't need to see me. You can just use these products and it'll help you maintain the color and just keep your hair healthy and come in for trims in between. But yeah, if a client doesn't need any highlights or anything, I will literally tell them, like, there's nothing I can really do, or you should really just like let it grow out a little bit more before we can even highlight it. Okay, so really quickly, I did the same thing on the side. So you saw I did some slices on the side hairline to connect that money piece to the side money piece, and now I'm going in and gonna be doing the internal side parts. So I do a weave above the ear. I always like to do a weave there because I feel like slices just make it really harsh and you can definitely see lines, so I always weave above the ear. And then I'm going to continue slicing because you can see here, compared to the top, there are bigger chunks of dark, so that's why I'm going in with the slice instead of the weave like I did on the top. And again, at this point, I'm just using 20 volume to finish off her hair. I find that even though like she's gray, I will still use 20 volume whether the hair is really dark or really light. I just find it's a good like standard level as far as the developer. It processes and lifts really well at 20 volume in my opinion. And I have had people ask me, because I use long foils, if I use any heat, and I will pop the ends of these long foils into the dryer to kind of help have the ends catch up. But I do check the hair. So you know how I said that there are different color history. She has virgin, she has permanent color, she has highlights. So I'll check from top if the dryer needs to be on the top of her head or if the dryer needs to be on the ends of the foils. And I'll rotate too. And especially on hair that's this light, I'll check every 5 minutes and keep rotating from top to bottom if necessary. So now I am going in and I've decided to do some tip outs because I felt like the ends of her hair, some of it was still pretty dark. You can see a lot of that low light on the internal underneath is pretty dark. So I am over directing the hair in front of her. So over direction when you're doing tip outs is going to be your best friend because it is going to soften the line, because when they wear their hair down, since you've over directed, it really does soften any type of line of demarcation. And then on top of that, I am teasing, so it's like double insurance to make sure that you don't see any harsh lines when you're doing a tip out. A third way to blend it is over direct, tease, and then even weave. But because her tease is really pretty, I didn't feel the need to do an extra weave to blend. I'll find that on hair that is really thick and doesn't tease very well, I'll do an extra like weave after I over direct and then tease, if that makes sense. But as you can see here, I am teasing her hair, and that tease is getting nice and fluffy and her ends are nice and see-through, so I found that she really didn't need me to do an extra weave. But that's just an extra tip if you have a tip out and you want a little extra insurance of blending on hair that is on the thicker side and doesn't really tease well. Okay, so now we are pulling out her foils. So the back was ready because we started there, and her hair, because her hair was pretty light, it lifted pretty quickly. And I will say me rotating the dryer on top and ends did help a lot even out hair canvas, and I feel like that's a really helpful tip when you're working with different levels in the hair. And yeah, so I'm going in, we're pulling out those foils. Once the hair at any point reaches level 10, that's when I know to rinse, even though some parts might not reach all the way to that point. If any point, any section of the hair is a 10, then it's done, because you really don't want to over process the hair at all. You want to make sure that you maintain the integrity of the hair, because you can never put back hair, but you can always lift more of the hair if it can take it, if that makes sense. But yeah, so after we've washed out all her foils, now we are going in with the Barcelona Purple Shampoo by Pulp Riot, and this one is still my favorite. I feel like it works really, really well on the hair and helps tone out the hair. But I am going to let this purple shampoo sit on her hair. I normally let them sit for maybe like 3 to 5 minutes. I don't like to let it sit too much, because then it can deposit too much of that purple and blue into the hair and kind of make the hair green. So I like to give it a nice 3 to 5 minutes, and then we wash it out. And then she'll be ready for some toner. So now that she is prepped for some toner, we are going to be using a liquid demi-line for her shadow root. You can do anything for the shadow root, but I always suggest you do some sort of ash into the shadow root to kind of blend out these lines that we put from all the slicing and weaving. I just find that shadow root just blends everything together very well. So I always do like to do one, and I am using a level 6 ash. So a level 6 ash is going to be like a level 6 more blue based toner. So it's going to give the appearance of something that is going to be more of like a medium grayish tone as it blurs out these lines. And I like to apply her shadow root vertically, starting in the back. I find that doing it vertically is going to blur out any harsh lines. It's going to soften everything. I used to do it horizontally, and I found that I could really see the lines, especially when you're doing it such a dark shadow root, like a level 6 on highlights that are a level 10. I just find that you can really see the line when you're doing it quickly, like where the shadow root ends. So I now do these sections vertically opposed to horizontally. I just feel like it looks a lot softer. And as I'm going in, I'm applying about like 1 inch to the root. And notice how as I'm doing the shadow root, I do the whole back section behind the ears first, from ear to ear. And then I do follow that section all the way from the behind the ear to the section where it meets the money piece. You can see I sectioned out 1 inch of her hairline around her face, and I consider that the money piece section. So I typically like to save that part for the end. I don't shadow root that part until I have toned at least the mids of the back of the head. And the reason why I do that is because I find that the hair in the front of the hairline, they're a lot finer than the hair back here. And so they tone, I feel like they tone so fast. They tone in like seconds. But the hair back here is a lot thicker. It's a little bit more dense. It might be even warmer because it's denser. It didn't lift as well as the hairs in the front. There could be a lot of reasons. But I always like to tone this back part if we are doing some sort of bright blonde first. And in this instance, we're doing silver. So I'm doing her mid and I am brushing out that toner. By the way, the toner that we're using now is the Pulprite Rapid Toners. And these rapid toners, I love them because they work fast. But I also love them because they have no background shade. I know like the Demis, I said I was using like a level 6-1. So it has that level 6 background color. But in these rapid toners, I feel like it's just straight pigment. Almost think of it as like a booster or like a semi where it just has straight color. It doesn't really have any background tone. And when I mean background tone, I mean like tannish brown. I feel like the level 6 in my shadow root gives it a kind of tannish brown background level, and that's what gives it its depth. But these rapid toners are just straight pigment in my opinion. So I did a mixture of silver, which is going to be a balanced silver, which is more blue based. And because it's more blue based, I always have to add in some more violet because the hair is yellow. And I feel like if I just put silver all over this, it could potentially go a little green because the silver rapid toner is a little bit more blue based in my opinion. And so on hair that is extra porous, if you guys are familiar with this, is if the hair is more porous, I feel like it always grabs blue the fastest. I don't know why it does this. If any of you guys have any idea why it does, please let me know because I'm curious. But I always find that the blue grabs the fastest, and then your warmer tones. So I always like to have insurance, and I add in violet to potentially counteract any blue from overpowering into the hair. And so I add in some violet rapid toner with some moonstone, which is a lighter purple, to kind of help balance out the regular silver. Anyways, I hope that made sense. If it didn't, let me know and maybe I can try explaining it a little better in another video. But after I apply the toner, I would say this part's really visual. I let it sit for about maybe like 5 to 10 minutes depending on the hair, and then rinse out when I see the color that I'm looking for. And whenever I'm doing silvers, I'm really looking for a slight periwinkle, if that makes sense, like a slight smoky violet, because when that smoky violet dries, it's like the perfect gray silver. Alrighty guys, so here is the end result. Oh my god, it is so pretty. And compared to what she came in with, I would say it came out pretty nice. I would say it came out exactly what I set up her expectations for. I promised her it would look better, it would look more silver and blended, and give her a softer grow out, which it did. In my opinion, I feel like it looks way more blended, way less patchy, less yellow, and more silver. And as this fades out, I let her know how to take care of it and prolong this as much as possible. Ideally, when we're doing corrections like these, I would like her to wait as long as she can, because I want the toner to fade out completely, and I also want her natural to grow in to act as her natural low light, because again, I'm not going to be adding low lights in her hair. So my gray hair clients, I always tell them if they can wait the longest amount of time in between appointments, that would honestly be better for me, because of the purpose that I don't add low lights and I use their natural as technically a natural low light. Oh my god, if you guys have made it this far in this video, thank you guys so much for watching. Seriously, this one was a really long one. There was a lot of information that I wanted to share with you guys, but I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions or anything, comment down below. But as always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next week.